Hello guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we start part 5 of our story. I hope you like our story. If you liking our story, then don't forget to like and subscribe. So now start our story. Read something that I hadn't noticed before that was written in the dust on the back window of my car, and it read, "Sleep well?" A lot of weird things have happened to me on my various adventures through Arizona, but this one was definitely the weirdest and the creepiest by far, so I thought that I might share it here with you guys. Seeing as this is sort of the place to do it, there are some seriously deranged people living in the superstition mountains of that absurd. Do yourself a favor too, guys, and stay as far away from those mountains as you can. So I drove out to the Blackhead National Forest yesterday as a kind of day trip with my friend. We stopped at this spot with trailheads along a sort of creek and river, and this state has weird ideas of what a creek and a river is, so who knows what it actually is, but it was fun and things were going pretty great. We found a waterfall and decided to go a little off trail to see the tiny creek that fed it not far at all, but we were looking at this sort of itty-bitty creek that was mostly swallowed by leaves, and then I felt like I needed to look up the stream a bit, but not at the stream, just in that direction, and I saw something about maybe 50 feet away. At first I thought it was a bird sitting on a table. It was very white, or sort of light tan, stood out amongst the gray surrounding of the bare trees though, and the moment that I saw it I kind of froze, to be honest too. I felt like I needed to just turn around and go back the way that I came ASAP. I'm looking at it and realize that it's not moving at all, like it's completely still. The increasing feeling of danger and go away vibes continued. I pointed it out to my friend and he said, "Yeah, I don't think we're supposed to be up here," but I had to pee, so I went real quick while facing this thing, just in case it was something that would run up with me. I started to reason with myself that it must just be a bit of bad dirt or dead wood sticking out from something, or weird or something, but I just couldn't shake this feeling that I was getting anyway. We head back down the edge to the trail, and I have that feeling like there's something right behind you that's gonna get you, sort of like when you run up the stairs in the dark when you're little and you just feel like something is sort of on your tail. Anyway, as a note, I always pay attention to when things are extra silent around me in nature. I know my presence can make things go a little bit quiet because, well, technically I'm a predator, but this is the subtropics. The woods are never dead or silent in the winter or any time. Basically it's just sort of no longer obnoxiously loud, but I noticed that when we were up there that I couldn't even really hear the waterfall that went off the edge about maybe 5 feet away from us. No bird sounds, just nothing, and these trees are tall, so often the birds just go up to the top branches and yell their alarm calls to each other, but there was none of this. I don't even recall seeing any life the entire time that I was out there. No fish, no insects, no flies, which was really weird. I even gently dug into some of the water spots to see if there was anything there, because I think that stuff is cool, but there was nothing. Very weird. So we're walking away from this waterfall, and as soon as we go around this rock where we wouldn't be able to see the waterfall anymore if we turned around, I didn't have that something is right behind me feeling anymore, like at all. We had to turn back around though, because we were a few feet off trail and it kind of dead ended at the sort of drop off back down to the trail. When we go back down around the rock, I instantly feel it again, but this time it's immediately in front of me. That's where this turfall is too. I don't feel it from the waterfall per se, but from the ledge above. It's like someone dangerous is watching me from up there, but I can't see anything. Anyway, I know it's super weird, but we go down the trail and we just continue on. The whole way I hear branches snapping and stuff. Sounds like something human-sized at the smallest, but it's coming from the ledge above that overlooks the trail and the river creek that it winds along. The bad vibes the whole way. We see some sort of structure along the trail that had a fallen tree that had taken it down, so my friend says, "Okay, we've got to at least go that far." I agreed because I didn't feel bad vibes from that spot, but we pass it and There's another creek leading to the river thing and, just like the one with the waterfall, that is, the trail winds back a bit up the stream and then comes back out. I suppose it's a way for them to build smaller bridges maybe. And there's less erosion up there or something. I say I don't want to go any further, though, because I don't like the vibes back there. He agrees too, and we kind of hang there for a minute, but then we hear people or something off in the distance. I don't feel right about it either. Granted, I had some sketchy experiences with property owners years ago on a river in northern Tennessee, so I think maybe that's why I feel weird. I'm trying to talk myself down from the concern, I suppose, but I still have my guard up and I'm staying situationally aware, that's for sure, kind of keeping my head on a swivel while still enjoying the beauty of nature. So we start heading back and I'm getting an increasing feeling of this thing is going to get us or me. It's still on the ridgeline coming back with us, but it's like slightly ahead. I think branches cracking, sounds of water not near the waterfall too, but trickling and splashing like that when I didn't hear it there on the way. And I keep looking back up because I just know that there's something there, but I can't see anything. The creepy feeling though keeps getting worse and worse, and we eventually pass this waterfall and there's some old ladies at a picnic bench. They say hi. I talk to them briefly about their dog Lee. She has her dog and says hi, and he does a sort of cute bark. I love dogs, but I didn't stop this whole time that I was talking to them because I just didn't trust anything that was happening at that point. I even for some weird reason questioned whether they were real. What the dog seemed normal enough though. Anyway, I keep going and I'm feeling a little bit better, like this thing backed off a bit, but still I want to get the heck out of there. And we get back to the trailhead where we parked and my friend saw the first sign of life, a fly finally. Also there were finally bird noises, which I was very grateful to hear. We get into the truck and leave, and I just felt like it was a movie, like the camera would zoom in on the ridgeline as we were leaving to show something or someone was watching us. But anyway, we drove around a few more places, checked out a small lake, and made our way back eventually. I didn't feel right still, and I just felt really drained, like just exhausted from the hike, which was a very intense one, but like mentally and emotionally drained too. Somewhere along the trip too, I sort of looked at the time, and when I looked at it I could hardly believe my eyes, because now it was way later in the day, and there's just no way that it should have been. Anyway, it was a really weird day, and I'm not sure what the heck that was or what happened and why we lost all that time. But if anyone has any ideas of what happened or what that thing was, then please do let me know. This happened when I was 13. I'm a girl as well, and in the 8th grade, and the middle school that I went to was about a 15-minute walk, so not very far. For context too, my older brother and we grew up in East Eldata in a small house that had a metal gate, and both in front and back doors had a black metal screen door and a wooden door too. During the day we would always leave the wooden door open and have the black metal door closed and locked. Well, except this day. That day I came home from school, and about an hour before anyone else would be home I was really thirsty, so I rushed inside and grabbed a drink, sat down at the kitchen table, which was about 10 feet away from the front door. I then heard the metal gate open and was surprised, as no one should have been coming home that early. I got up to see who it was and saw an older man, probably in his 60s. He had short white hair and a long white beard. He was wearing an AC/DC t-shirt, torn jeans, and sunglasses. I remember thinking too that he looked a lot like Santa Claus, but dirty and creepy. Well, he knocked on the metal screen door and asked if my parents were home. I was a dumb kid though and said that they weren't. He had a huge smile on his face at that point and said that he collected donations for needy children. I said sorry, but I didn't have any money. He said sometimes children donated old toys. I said I didn't have any old toys to donate. He insisted that I must have some toys that I didn't want anymore. He was beginning to creep me out a bit, and it was then that I noticed that I hadn't locked the door. When I came inside, I tried to keep my cool as I slowly and very carefully moved my hand, locked the door. I kept him talking so that he wouldn't notice, and a minute or two later he just wouldn't leave, so I decided that I would pretend to check for toys and then say that I didn't have any so he would hopefully leave. I told him that I would go and check, and as I turned and took a few steps down the hall I clearly heard him yank at that door trying to open it. I didn't want him to know that I had heard, so I just kept walking down the hall and into a room. I didn't have a cell phone, and the only phone in the house was in the kitchen. I thought about what I should do and decided to stick with my plan. After about 2 or 3 minutes I walked out hoping that he left, but nope, creepy Santa Man was still just standing there. I told him sorry, but I didn't find anything. He sighed and said all right, he would check another time. He then left and walked across the street. Watched him from the kitchen window peeking through the blinds as he just stood there staring at my house for what must have been at least another 45 minutes. My brother and a few friends of his finally came walking down the street, and as my brother came inside and his friends kept walking down the street, the man chose to walk around the corner and then just disappear. I told my brother what happened and he walked outside to look, but by that time creepy Santa Man was long gone. When my mom came home we told her what happened and she called the cops, but they said to call back if he ever showed up again. Thankfully too, he never did show up again, but it was a creepy experience to say the least. Here in South Africa we're in lockdown right now. I meant to travel for work to Santa Barbara, but since we're under lockdown we can't really go anywhere, so I'm an entrepreneur with a tech startup here though, and since I travel mostly I make use of the Regus co-working space for a hot desk or meeting room. It's quite flexible and there's always coffee and pretty girls coming in and out, so that's always nice. Since COVID-19 broke over I saw Regis as a public or corporate office with many people coming in and out, therefore I was now stuck with no office. But a buddy of mine told me that he has an entire unused area at his house behind some offices. I would be alone. I'd have my own kitchen, lounge, TV, bathroom, everything, but the catch, I would have to park on the road. So let me quickly explain. The way the road is, it's a wide, steepest road with a massive park and a zoo on the left, with 3 entrances and parking and houses and businesses on the right. I use this road quite often to go to Florida Road, a popular bar and food district, but there's only street lights on the houses and businesses side as there was a red line or no parking lot alongside the road on the right and the left. I had to park outside the park, so I parked in the first parking nearest to the building that I was working at. It wasn't near, and I still had to walk a few meters, but this story takes place one night before the lockdown, so I had a call with a company in Denver, Colorado, which I had to start at 6 p.m. SAST. It went well and I decided to pack up and leave. I wore formal shoes and carried my laptop on my back, being paranoid. Before I left I looked on the CCTV before opening the gate and I didn't see anyone outside. I then proceeded to buzz myself out, lock up, and walk out, and I don't know how to, but in the time that it took for me to walk from the building to the gate, a man appeared. He seemed drunk or high maybe, and just sort of hanging around against the fence on the side of the road. My car was wearing a hooded sweatshirt with the hoodie down, torn brownish jeans, and sneakers. I started walking and looked down, keeping track of him from the corner of my eye. Mine was the only car left, so I would assume that he knew that it was mine. And as I got closer to the car I noticed him starting to walk out toward me. I ignored it. He was still walking diagonally, trying to cut me off. He then said, as he was about 5 meters away, "Now hey, let me help you with your bag." Now I had a comfortable laptop back on. I was walking hands-free, and yet he asked to help with my bag. In South Africa, car guards usually help you with your grocery bags and expect a 5 or 10 ZAR tip. But not this guy. This guy knew what I was doing, where I was going, and what I was carrying. To make matters worse as well, he had his left hand in his hoodie pocket and was now walking much faster, and then it all went down in a split second. He suddenly lunged at me. Versus being a football player, I feigned left and I went right in that split Second two, I thought that if I ran to my car, which was still another 10 or 15 meters away, I would have surely not made it. I am fast but fumbling with my keys opening the door. Getting in, I wasn't confident, so instead I made the decision of jumping the fence into the now dark park. I made it with one leap over, albeit slower since my laptop backpack kept bouncing on my back, but as soon as I hit the ground I took my laptop bag off, held it in my hand, and I just went for it. I looked quickly for a dark spot to hide, so I ended up behind a massive tree in the park, but there are a few of them. But it was the only one that didn't have a light hitting on it. I heard him running and slurring his words and saying something like, "Just give me the bag," but my car was on the other side of a tennis court, and if I could get to the tennis court, sneak around that and then run to the car, I think that I would make. But there was a lit open space between this tree and the tennis court, and he was running straight through that space, so I watched the angle of him running and slowly rounded the tree to keep myself out of his line of sight. Quite honestly too, I think him being high or drunk or whatever helped me immediately here, because as he ran straight past and toward the other side of the park, he didn't seem to get me when he was a distance away, which could have been more than 20 meters. I suppose I made a break for it not being quiet anymore. Now too, I pushed away every branch and leaf which he heard, and turned around and saw I burst around the tennis court. Stupid, because I could have just went back the way that I came, I know, but I turned around and saw him yelling and running back at me, stumbling every now and then too, but picking up the pace and then actually gaining on me. And now I could see that he had a knife and it was out. I puffed my way up the hill, opened the car and jumped in. I locked the door with my laptop on my lap and started my car, and when I looked back at the darkness, he was just gone. He must have slunk back into the park when I was out of range, but where he went I don't want to find out. I skidded, drove the heck out of there, and I won't say that I won't work there again, because I would. Maybe next time I'll Uber it. So this happened when I was 15. During the summers I lived with my dad in a super small town close to the Navajo reservation called St. John's. It's a town with a lot of nice people, most of which from rancho or cowboy families. The town is in the middle of the decided to prank one of our other buddies. It was dark outside, like pitch black dark. There are barely any street lights in the town, and as a result it's incredibly difficult to see without a flashlight. But after we pranked our friend using window pane to write a funny message on his car, we began walking back to my friend's car. As he started opening the door, we heard something close to us on our right. We turned our heads and pointed the flashlight towards the place that we heard the noise, and about 100 feet away was a creature so foreign that my friend and I became just paralyzed with fear, the kind of afraid where your whole body tightens up so tensely that it actually hurts. This thing looks like a dog, but it was the size of like a small tiger. It was dark brown with matted fur and pitch black eyes. Imagine the werewolf from Harry Potter, but it's less humanoid, and it was walking. When the light hit it, it moved just so strange as well, almost as if it was unfamiliar with its body, like it was trying to decide whether or not to walk on 4 legs or 2. It slowly turned its head towards us, its eyes narrowing on ours. It stared at us for what seemed like forever before I jolted its head into the air and just screamed, not like your noise that you hear an animal make, but like the screech of a woman, and the creature's screams caused our paralyzed bodies to jump back into reality. As we realized that we needed to leave ASAP, we jumped into my friend's car and sped away to his home, and the whole night we just sat on his bed trying to double check with each other that we actually saw and heard all of that. When morning eventually came, I went home to my dad's house down the street. I was scared to tell him what happened, because one of his only rules is that I wasn't allowed outside after 11, and when I told him, I expected him to say that I was seeing things, but to my surprise he actually believed me. He grew up in the town and lived there almost his whole life, and my dad told me some of his own encounters with skinwalkers, which was kind of comforting for some weird reason. But My dad is incredibly religious, so he believed the skinwalkers were Native Americans that worship Satan, and now that I'm older I realize that that's kind of racist really, sort of in the same way that the Indian burial ground horror stories are a bit that way, too. But anyway, that's what happened, and as I've grown older I've talked to my siblings and other people in the town about what happened. Turns out as well that lots of people, my family included, they've had their own encounters. I'm not really sure what to believe, but I know that I saw what I saw when I was about 14 or 15 years old. My friend was having a birthday party at her house. It was only just girls until my boyfriend and another boyfriend of my friends attending the birthday girls' party insisted that we leave her house and walk to the local high school closer to her house to meet them so that we could continue hanging out and have some fun with them. It was around 2 in the morning when we were walking down a straightening road that eventually led to the high school when all of a sudden this hillbilly, probably 40 something years old guy, drives past us, slows down, stops and backs up to me and my 2 friends that went on this walk. He stops right in front of us, gets out of his car, walks up to the 3 of us and asks us what pretty young things are doing out so late like this. Me, being the most clever or perhaps the most stupid and brave, replied to him with some bull crap story about how our friends were having a party and they started drinking, so we got uncomfortable and wanted to go to my house for the rest of the early morning. And after I told him that, he just stood there with his hands in his pockets, sort of eyeing each of us up and down, all whilst looking back at his truck a few times. My friends and I definitely knew that he was trying to figure out which one of us would be easiest to grab and throw into his truck. I was the smallest of my 2 other friends, mind you, and he kept making eye contact with me over the other 2 friends. He just stood there eyeing us for what felt like forever, but was probably more like a couple of minutes. He eventually asked us if we wanted a ride home or if just I wanted him to take me home. We replied that we were almost home anyway and we didn't need or want a ride, and then he just stood there eyeing us up and down again for another minute or so, deciding what to do, I think, and he eventually got back into his truck without saying a word to any of us when he drove off and was far enough away for us to start running. We jumped a small fence lining the high school and we ran across the field to the tennis courts, where we were startled by my boyfriend, my friend's boyfriend, and another guy friend of ours. We told them what just happened, and we walked over to an alley that was at the end of the school that led back to the sidewalk in the main road that we had just been walking on. They heard some screeching tires and a car speeding as fast as they could back up the road, and we saw that it was that guy again that we had just encountered, speeding directly back to where me and my friends were just walking. He stopped his truck, got out, and was walking around looking like he was searching, most likely for my friends and I would guess, but we all hid in some nearby bushes as he patrolled the sidewalk up and down, and after a few minutes of searching for us, he got back into his truck and sped off in the opposite direction from which he came. We all ran to the other side of the school and took some inner neighborhood streets to get to my friend's boyfriend's house to make sure that he couldn't find us if he was still in the hut. We assumed too that he came back around as fast as he could, because he finally made the decision to pick one of us up and take off with us to do as he pleased or whatever he had planned. And all I can say is that I thank God that we dodged that creep that night, because it could have all ended very differently. So I'm a sheriff's deputy in a fairly busy county, and along with this job comes the unfortunate familiarity with what a decomposing human body smells like. To me it's very similar to an animal carcass, but with a much more sweeter odor. Not sweet in the sense that I enjoy it, heck no, that smell normally means a bad night for me, in fact, and another gruesome memory to add to my catalog of things that I would rather forget. But anyway, with that out of the way, I'll get to what happened. So last night I was patrolling a geographically isolated area of the county, which is a very large and sparsely populated place having completed the hour-long trek to the northwestern county line, I began driving through the mountains back towards civilization. About 25 miles from town, or the closest semblance thereof, I hit a straight stretch of highway through a wide valley. Since the weather was nice, I had my windows rolled down, and as I passed the entrance of an old logging road, that familiar smell of sweet rot suddenly just filled my car. Not just a whiff as well, but a cloud if it filled the cab, as if there was a week-old human corpse sitting in the front seat next to me. It was all too familiar, but this time there was something else that I just couldn't place. It lingered for a few moments and then went away just as quickly as it had ended. Realizing what I just smelled, my heart sank and I pulled to the side of the road. I told myself that it was just a dead animal in the ditch and that my mind was playing tricks on me. I turned my car around and drove slowly back towards the logging mode. The closer I got, the smell became stronger, and I grew more certain that I was about to find another body. Onto a shred of hope that I was wronged, I went parked my unit on the side of the highway just before the dirt road. I radioed to dispatch, told them my location and that I would be out of my unit for a moment. I didn't say why, to avoid an awkward disregard on a possible body on the side of the road, but I shined my flashlight into the ditch and into the encroaching briars and weeds as I walked closer to where I believed the source of the smell was. Once I was a few yards away from the dirt road, I saw the opening of a concrete culvert going under the highway. At this point, the smell was nearly as strong as it was when I had first passed it. The opening of this place was about, I would say, 3 feet in diameter, just large enough to hide a body inside. I cursed and held my breath as I leaned over and shined my light inside, but when I did, it was just an empty tunnel stretching the width of the highway. Somewhat relieved, I must admit, I just sort of stood there and looked around. It honestly smelled as if I was standing on top of whatever was emanating the odor, though I searched around the brush for a moment, but I didn't find anything, thinking now that the origin may be on the opposite side of the highway. I crossed to the other ditch to continue searching, but as I walked away from the other side of the road, fainter, I stopped at the opposite end and peeked inside just to double check, but the odor was nearly gone. At this point, I stood up and I checked my surroundings when I heard a crack in the brush behind me, and the smell just engulfed me and was even stronger than before. Thinking for a moment that the wind must have shifted, I froze when I realized all of a sudden that the air was dead still. Whether it was fear or something else, a shiver went down my spine. In the distance, I saw headlights coming down the highway, and as the car came near, the motor seemed to move away further into the bushes towards where I had heard the crack. The car stopped and the passenger rolled down the window and asked if I was all right. I lied and I told him that I was. I thanked him for checking and walked briskly to my car as they drove away, and after that I just got the heck away from there. Once I was able to get cell service, I called my friend who was patrolling the opposite side of the county. I explained what happened, trying not to let off that I was spooked, and once I was done, though, he paused for a moment, then asked about the unusual hint of something which accompanied the smell. He asked me if it was sulfur, and I put 2 and 2 together, and I must say that it definitely was that sort of sulfur smell. I asked if he thought that I had found a demon in the middle of nowhere, to which he responded with a concerned yes. A little background on this guy as well: he's the son of a missionary and has been around the world a lot. He has seen, or rather smelled, this before, and told me that it was a very concerning experience. I'll admit, too, that this spooked me even more because his responses were very out of character for him. Also, I know from experience that this community is very resourceful and provides helpful feedback. So what the heck do you guys think happened? Has anyone had anything even remotely similar occur to them? There's always the chance of a very scientific explanation. I know that, and I hope that one is out there that could explain it away. If you're familiar with my previous stories, then you know that I've had some other encounters in the past which included an encounter with a possible possession. I'm open to any advice or guidance, though I know how to fight criminals, but an evil spirit not so much. And to answer a question that I know is coming, yes, I will be going back there tonight when I get off work, so I'm quarantined with my mom. We're both avoiding going out when possible, because we're both compromised, so we just sort of take short trips for many errands that we need to complete in order to not go stir crazy. Today she needed to get some gas, and we needed a few groceries too, so we both went. We saw my cousin at the gas station, and after I went to one of the pumps I said hello. When my mom went to pay for her gas, after she paid I started pumping the gas, and we all just sort of stood there chatting for a moment. And when my cousin returned to the car, a man came out of the gas station. He was balding, unkempt, a patchy short beard and old glasses, the kind you see on high school photos from the 80s. He was wearing a sort of a tropical shirt with a notepad and a pen in the pocket, and dirty car keys and a tan jacket. He stopped at my cousin's car and talked to her. She's kind of small, so I stood there watching until she got in the car safely, and I heard it start. My mom and I were pumping the last bit of gas into the car. Both of us didn't need to do it, but we were both just glad to be outside for a moment. The guy walked over to us while she was finishing up and said, "Are you having fun?" We just kind of glanced at each other, and my mom said and swatted me to make me go to my side of the car. I didn't go, though I didn't want to until she was in the car herself, and then the guy turned to me and said, "Are you having fun with your granddaughter?" as if he were trying to make a joke, but his facial expressions never changed. I just kind of gave him a bit of a blank stare and said, "That's my mup." I squeezed between him and the bumper and moved to my side of the car. He followed closely and said, "I just came here from Michigan. I've been here for 10 years. I got in and held on to my door." He stared at where I was holding the door and then at my face again. I was giving him the blank stare and said, "That's nice." And then my dog stuck his nose out and began barking at this guy. He's a 15-pound Yorkie and usually sweet, but sounded like an angry guard dog while he was barking. This time, "Is the dog having fun?" the guy asked. I held onto the door tighter and said, "I guess so. Have a nice day." I closed the door quickly. He locked it, and my mom just drove off. My cousin drove after us. She'd been watching the entire time as well, waiting for either us or the guy to leave, but my mom and I both remarked that the guy was super creepy, and we both thought that he may have been trying to jump in the car. I'm really glad that I went with her today. Okay, that's enough for today, guys. We meet you in new such scary and horrifying video. Until you like and subscribe to our channel.